I'm Ben C.,
I'm Dr. V,
the medical legal guys. Let me ask you this. So what now should happen with regard to what the company should do? I gather that they ought to use a better product, right?
That's a good point. This is brutal, okay? That we have devices on the market, okay? But the device is not getting studied one-to-one against the inferior catheters because the manufacturers of these inferior catheters are not going to agree for a study against the better catheters. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you're not getting the studies. They're doing studies to show this and that. But the big question is new technology, old technology, study this, shelve the old technology, move forward, improve from there. We're stuck here. And it's sad.
You know, maybe our topic today should be on what leads a company and what leads the public to have knowledge of and what leads the scientists to determine that something is safer than something else, that a particular disease or condition is caused by a product, a particular pharmaceutical, a particular medical device. These are determinations that they don't just come out of the air. People can't just guess at it and be accurate unless it's just totally about luck. Dr. V, how do people and how do researchers go about determining what is the cause of a problem and what is a solution to a problem?
So Ben, you were the co-lead of the IVC litigation, and that includes the Cook Pharmaceutical. I was involved in a lot of that discovery, and the Select IVC Filter was one of the worst devices on the market because it had a tendency to perforate. And when that device perforated the IVC, then it would fracture, and that device had horrible complications. The company, Cook Pharmaceutical, they knew all the complications. And while they kept the bad device on the market without telling doctors, they devised a safer alternative design to fix the problem of this device. That is what is supposed to happen, but you're supposed to study this device before it gets on the market so it doesn't get on the market, right? And in this situation, Cook Medical out of Indiana. What they did was they had a problem. They fixed the problem, which they should have. They should have taken this device off the market. They should have said, hey, this device is a bad device. We're sorry. We're going to pay for our sins. Instead, they kept this device on the market. They introduced the better device. They kept this device on the shelves, didn't tell doctors, and they let doctors continue to use the inventory on the shelf.
Knowing that it's had the perforation problem that the newer problem didn't have in as great of an incident.
Yeah. So Ben, our work, your work, you were the head lead in this IVC litigation. I was just kind of the guy who was looking at the documents, and this device, the IVC filter, would go in the vena cava of patients, and for a purpose of preventing blood clots that generally start in the legs to travel up into the lungs and cause death by way of pulmonary embolism. So this device was to prevent serious problems, including death. And the problem with this filter, it goes into the IVC and it looks like a wire kind of, right? Well, you've described it in trial.
So you'll see the picture. It's like a badminton, a smaller version of a badminton, about 3 inches tall, 2.5, 3 inches tall in height. And it's an upside down badminton. And it's fed up into the vena cava, the largest vein in the body. And so what it's supposed to do is catch blood clots if they go from the lower extremities to up towards the lungs and the heart, which can be dangerous. Other problems with them, and we've found out that they actually don't work.
It would go sometimes into the spine. It would go sometimes in the pancreas. It would sometimes go into the small bowel, heart, the aorta, and it was a perforating device, and it was terrible.
Perforating machine's pretty good word for it.
Yeah. And so the work that Ben did, it got published in the Annals of Internal Medicine about how this company got the device into the market by having data that supported its approval by the FDA, right? That's how devices can get on the market because they aren't studied properly. But when they're on the market, in the market, and they're safer alternatives, those safer alternatives should always be worked on and advanced to the public. And we're not seeing that because of cash cows.
You need to tell doctors. You need to tell the patient so that they have a fully informed decision on whether or not to undergo a placement of a inferior vena cava filter, an IVC filter, or any of the other products. We get back to the PICC lines. We get back to the port catheters. If there's a safer alternative, use it. And if you're not going to use it, tell that patient, tell that doctor a bad product. And if you're not going to sell the good product, tell them, tell the doctors, tell the patients, this isn't the best product for you. And let's see then what happens when you tell them.
It should come from the company.
The company has more knowledge and the ability to have more knowledge than anybody. They're the ones that are developing the product. They're the ones who have the best knowledge, the most knowledge of the studies that go into the determination as to how to manufacture the product, how to make the product the best product, how to use the best materials and put it all together. Then they use those studies, the experiments, the research, the animal studies, the human studies, all of those things go together to get product on the market if the product is safe, right? Safe and effective. And IVC filter, not only are they not safe, they're not effective.
There is some litigation that doctors have turned their back on. And for example, in the mid-urethral sling litigation, the Altus device, that we have a case in Chicago where we are suing a implanting doctor who caused a serious injury, neurological injury, and he failed to remove the device after it caused injury because he believed in the device. Okay. So we're suing the doctor for failing to remove a device in a timely fashion on a woman who was severely injured. And we're suing the manufacturer because the device has significant problems. And this doctor, we took his deposition a few weeks ago, and he refused to sign the confidentiality agreement, which would have allowed him to see the information that we gained through discovery that he has never been told about the dangers of the device. And he refused to look at the internal data from the company on why this device causes pain and why this device causes pain in frequencies that are unusual. So, doctors have some responsibility in this mess. What's your thoughts on that case?
The fact that a doctor has the opportunity, doctors usually want, and doctors always need the most information, the best information, the most detailed information, and some broad information. Every bit of information on a product that a doctor is putting in a patient's body is good information. It's good information. And to just think of a doctor who refuses to look at the information amazes me. It amazes me. That's what I think about that particular case. That's what I think about that particular doctor. And that's what I think about the company is they don't ensure that doctor gets in the information and make certain that they're aware of it because these are internal documents, right? We can't get into them because of confidentiality orders and all that stuff. But let me just tell you, internal documents will tell the story usually.
And in this trial, that doctor is going to see some internal documents.
It'll be sitting there right there, and he's going to see them at trial, whether he likes it or not.
And when they become public, and we'll be able to show them everywhere. And we're going to be able to show the public what the company knew and what this doctor did not want to see. And just shameful. Doctors want to know the information on safety. That's how they make an informed decision in terms of risks versus benefits. I have to believe that had he known that this is a pain-generating machine that was implanted, that he implanted, that was causing serious injury, that he would have removed that device in a very timely fashion, okay, instead of this woman having to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
What we do is we represent folks who have been injured by medical devices and other products, and we file lawsuits and we try cases.